Hi, everybody. Welcome to Assembly Hall. If you've ever listened to IU football or basketball, I'm sure you know the name Don Fischer. He's my guest on Playmakers, brought to you by IBJ Media. Hi, I'm Dave Calabro, and I've covered some of the biggest moments in sports. But the stories that matter most are the ones that you rarely hear, because the game is decided long before the final whistle or the checkered flag. These are the people who make the big plays. Welcome to Playmakers, brought to you by Indiana Members Credit Union.
This is Paul. He loves running, music, and DIY home projects. In fact, he's remodeling his kitchen thanks to a home equity line of credit from Indiana Members Credit Union. They connected him with a loan officer, got him approved at a great low rate, and made it easy for him to make his monthly payment from anywhere thanks to IMCU's digital banking. Looks like Paul can do it all with a little help from IMCU.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Assembly Hall, hanging out with Don Fischer, the voice of the Indiana Hoosiers. And thank you for joining us right here on the IBJ Media. This is Playmakers. I'm Dave Calabro. And Don, it's an honor to see you again and to hang out. And we're going to walk down memory lane. I think this is going to be kind of fun for me. I know you love talking about yourself.
Yeah, it's really, really fun.
Let's talk first off behind me. I see this 1976. It's been 50 years. It's March Madness is finally here. 50 years since IU had that magical run. And then 50 years later, another magical run with the football team. Are you living on cloud nine? I mean, how are your emotions these days?
Well, they're much calmer than they were about a month ago, but there's no question it's been a tremendous ride for me. 53 years of being here in Indiana, which is stunning in itself. I didn't think I'd last past the first year, to be quite honest about it, especially after I called Indiana University of Indiana.
Oh, boy.
3 times in the very first game that I ever did against Illinois. If you could believe I didn't get fired after that, well, you know.
And I think the switchboards at WIRE radio lit up, right?
It lit up. There's no doubt about it. And it was a huge mistake on my part. But I grew up in Illinois, University of Illinois, and I wasn't thinking that day because I was nervous as I don't want to say that word, but I really was. And nobody said anything until halftime. And my engineer said, they just called us and you best not call it University of Indiana again. And that was my cue to shut up in that regard.
Lesson learned, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you just mentioned it, 53 years. Has it flown by when you stop and think about everything you've been through here?
I mean, the longer you're in it, the more it seems like it's gone faster than you thought. For me, it's been very fast in that context. Even the bad years went faster. But the good news is that this program has been really good to me. I'm doing exactly what I signed up to do, to become a play-by-play guy. That's what I've always wanted to do. I got rid of all the other junk that's involved in sportscasting, doing the shows and those kinds of things on a daily basis. And the thing that I wanted to do while I got into this business was to do play-by-play, and that's what I've been able to do.
And how did it start? You didn't take the typical route. I saw you had you had 6 jobs right out of high school,
pretty
right?
much, yeah.
And you're kind of trying to figure out what you wanted to do, right?
Well, 2 or 3 of those jobs lasted about 1 month apiece. But one of them was I went to work for an insurance company. That was the first job I had. And 2 months after I got the job, I went to work one day and the doors were closed. I couldn't get in. And so I called up somebody that I knew in the department and I said, "What's going on?" They said, "Well, the agency has closed down because of fraud." And so I went, "Not because of me, I hope." And the guy said, "No, obviously it's not because of you," because I was just learning the business at the time. So that did it. That was the first thing. And then I went and sold magazines with my brother door to door for a company that nobody ever heard of. And then I got into factory work, 2 or 3 jobs. Finally, I went to work for the railroad. And I was with the railroad for a year and a half, the first 7 months of which I worked 7 days a week. I had 1 day off in 7 months. And the reason was because they told me when I got the job that it was going to be a couple of weeks before they got the weekend guy in. They were going to hire a new guy, and they didn't get him until 7 months later. So at any rate, during that time, is when my shift was 9 at night till 6 in the morning. I won't tell you all that I did because it wasn't that big a deal. Certainly, it didn't involve a lot of homework. And without question, one night I'm sitting in the depot, and during my lunch break, I looked at this sport magazine. On the back inside cover, there was a full-page ad, how would you like to be a sportscaster? And that's how I got started. And I took a home correspondence course, got about halfway through it, got my first job in Butte, Montana. Didn't do any sports out there, just did DJ work and that kind of thing. But again, my shift was 9 at night till 6 o'clock in the morning, like it was at the railroad. From 9 to midnight, I was a DJ. From midnight to 3, I was the janitor, cleaned the toilets and empty waste baskets. And from 3 to 6, I was the farm director.
Oh, my.
So that's how I got started.
That's wild. And then you end up in doing some radio in Indiana.
My last job before I got the gig here at WIRE in Indianapolis to be the voice of IU. But at any rate, long story, make it shorter than it needs to be, certainly, without question. I got a gig in Terre Haute. I was there for 2.5 years. It was an awesome job because they let me do as much play-by-play as I wanted to, and I was doing 175 play-by-plays a year.
Wow.
In a 2.5-year period of time, and literally probably got more experience doing that than anything else I ever had done previously. And that job ended with the station being sold, and a guy came in, and we did all of our play-by-play at that time on the FM side. And he was going to make it music intensive. That's back in the early 70s when that's what all the FM stations were doing.
Yeah.
And so I got kicked out of that job, went back to my first job that I did in play-by-play, and they hired me for 8 months, and the rest is history. I came back down here and got the job.
What do you remember about coming to IU campus, having the interview, and, well, I might get a chance to do this play-by-play job?
Well,
1973.
I did not interview with the school. I interviewed with the radio station in Indianapolis. They had the broadcast rights. First year that they had the broadcast rights for IU to be the exclusive voice of Indiana football and basketball games. And so when I went for the interview, I thought there was little chance I was going to get it because there were 200 plus guys had interviewed for it, or not interviewed, but had sent tapes and resumes, and they had gotten it down to like 5 or 6 people. I was probably the last guy that applied for the job, and I got an interview, went back home, thought there's no chance I'm going to get this, and like a week later, they called me and said, the job's yours if you want it.
Wow. And what do you remember about the first game you did, other than the fact that you were calling it the university? Yeah.
Well, I remember the thing about the first game was Lee Corso's first game as the head coach here at football. And that day, or weeks leading up to that ball game, he kept telling everybody, you have got to be in those stands on Saturday, the first game that we're going to do. You've got to be there. He said it's going to be special. You're going to want to watch these guys practice and all those kinds of things. So an hour before the ball game, we went on the air. I think at that time we were doing a half-hour pregame or something like that. We go on the air, and the team has never been on the field yet. In fact, you hadn't seen anybody from IU football on the field. And everybody's going, what's going on here? I mean, this guy's not warming them up. Anyway, about 5 minutes before kickoff, here's 2 big red buses that are coming down back in the days when it wasn't filled in on the end zones. They're driving down to the locker room area. Corso gets off the bus. They come running out in the field. The fans go crazy because now they finally seen we got an Indiana football team. And then we got penalized 5 yards for delay of game. Just so you know. That's what I remember most about
That's so
it.
funny.
And I know the final score was 28-14, and Indiana did not win. They played Illinois.
The beginning of a long ride for football. We'll get into that in a minute. But 3 years later, you're calling a national championship game for the Indiana Hoosiers a perfect season, something that we haven't seen. And it's remarkable. What do you remember about that journey? 50 years ago, Don.
Yeah, well, it was special. I went into that season believing that Indiana was going to win every ball game myself. Not just the players didn't; they all believed it too. But that 31-1 season that preceded it kind of led into that, and everybody thought this is going to be a heck of a year. Nobody anticipated it would probably be a year in which they won every ball game. However, there were 2 ball games that season that they probably shouldn't have won, because both of them were involving Kent Benson tipping the ball in at the horn, and both went to overtime, and they won both those games against Kentucky and against Michigan.
Wow.
And so
You
it was
made
a
me feel
phenomenal
really,
year.
really young reliving that, hearing you say that. What fun that is.
Yeah.
Tell me about your first encounter with Coach Bob Knight. Did you guys hit it off like besties right away?
No. Be quite honest about it. The first meeting was a little surreal. Max Gervin, who was my color analyst or was hired to be my color analyst, he would have been the play-by-play guy before me. And he wasn't all that happy about losing the play-by-play job. He worked for the university. He was with the IU Alumni Association, had a good rapport with a lot of the IU alumni groups around the state and that kind of thing. So they wanted to keep him on the broadcast. And so they said they're going to make him my color analyst, which is fine. I had no problem with it. So Don Luft, who worked for the varsity club at that time, was my spotter in football. So the Columbia Club hosted a tip-off luncheon in Indianapolis.
Oh, boy.
So we go to the tip-off luncheon. Knight's the speaker. Place goes nuts because he was tremendous. And as soon as the thing is over with, Max Gervin and Lefty are standing there, and Lefty says, I'm going to go get the coach for it. I want him to meet you, because I never met him at that point. So we were still a month and a half away from the basketball season. So we wait around because coach has got people wanting to take pictures and autographs and all those kinds of things. And the next thing you know, he's finally done. Lefty goes, hey, coach, come on over here. I want you to meet somebody. So he comes over, and Lefty goes, this is the new play-by-play guy for Indiana. His name is Don Fischer. And so I stuck out my hand. He shook my hand, didn't say, welcome to Indiana, didn't say anything, just had this scowl on his face, puts his arm around Max Gervin, and they walk off together. So I knew my place immediately. It's in the back row. But that was my first meeting with him. But you know what? I think as the years went by, he got to respect me, and he was just never great with media people for the most part.
Oh, don't we know?
Yeah, I know. I know.
He loved me too.
But he loved Bob Hamill.
Yes.
Hamill probably had as much to do with making sure that I was getting in the door to do my pregame interviews and that kind of stuff, because Hamill was a great person. Number one, he was one of the finest people you'd ever meet. But he also had it in with Knight. Of course, he also had it out with Knight too, when the Jimmy Wisman pulled the jersey off the floor, was printed in the Herald Times, which at that time was, I think, I don't know if it was the Herald Tribune or what, but at any rate, for 6 months, Knight and Hamill did not talk, because Knight thought that Hamill had something to do with that picture being on the front page of the Herald Times at that time.
Great memory.
So anyway, those things all happened. Now, my memories are all about those kinds of things and nothing else. That's the problem. Now I can't remember yesterday's ball game.
Well, that's how it works, right?
I guess.
Do you realize the impact you've had on fans that come to see Indiana sports? I want to talk football a minute, but you're so attached to Indiana basketball from the beginning and now football.
Well, I know this. I get people coming up to me all the time and thanking me for being here, doing what I do, which is stunning in itself. I mean, I always thought I was decent as a play-by-play guy. Now I think my head's bigger than this gymnasium, because I had people all the time coming up and talking about how they've listened to me since they were little kids. And I keep telling them, you're just making me feel older. But it's just so neat to hear people say, we've been listening to our whole lives and that kind of thing, which tells you how old I really am, like 100, right at 100 right now. At any rate, it's just humbling. And it just makes you feel really good about what you've been able to do.
Well, you walked right into that. So how long are you going to go? I got to ask these questions. You going to keep going?
I am. I haven't retired yet.
I'm just getting on the record here.
I haven't retired yet.
Okay, good. Just a couple more games to go, Fish.
Yeah, I know.
There could be another national championship run next year.
Well, you
got another one in you?
I can tell you right now, there probably will be another national championship possibility next year for football.
Before we get to football, I got to put you on the spot about basketball players, because I have these conversations with guys all the time, my IU buddies. They want to know, who's the best IU basketball player you ever saw? Come on, Don Fischer.
Oh, well, there's a whole bunch of guys that I really think are tremendous players. And if you go back, the one guy that sticks out, I think, to just about everybody would be Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah was phenomenal freshman, phenomenal sophomore. When Coach Knight took the chains off in his second year here and basically let him kind of run the offense, this team went to town, and they won a national championship because of it.
What fun to watch. That was another fun run too, wasn't it?
It was. I mean, during the year, Landon Turner was a guy that kind of was in and out of the lineup and mostly out of it early on. But at the end of the season, he was as valuable a player as anybody on that basketball team.
How close is this current basketball program to being back at that level again, do you think?
Well, it's going to take a little time. They're not right now. And what Darian DeVries did this year, in so many respects, people don't recognize how difficult this challenge is here. Number one, the expectations. You can see our fans right now not in the best of moods because Indiana's not winning much more than they did the last 2 years. But you know what? He had to put together a roster, and most of these kids are mid-major players, and they've gone through this journey or the grind that you could call the Big Ten Conference, and it's brutal, especially for guys that have never done it before. And I think that's one of the reasons they're struggling a little bit right now, because none of these guys have played at a mid-major or at a major college role or a par, what do they call it, whatever, a Power Four conference.
Yes, Power Fours.
And that's the thing. At this point, these guys are all still playing, basketball like they thought it was going to be, and it's not.
Different.
It's different, and it's an undersized team. They got some liabilities, and with that, they've also had a shortened roster because some of these guys have gotten hurt, haven't played a ton, and now you're playing with guys that are playing tons of minutes out there. How about this Minnesota team that they're going to play?
Yeah.
Because they have got 5 guys, they play 37 or more minutes in almost every game now here at the end of the year because they got all kinds of injuries. So it's a tough grind. There's no doubt.
Grind. Let's switch gears to football, as I know your time's valuable here. This run you just experienced, how do you describe what you just went through?
I think what we saw here at Indiana this year was how I put it at the end of the championship game. Rags to riches.
Mm-hmm.
This team went from a team that was on life support from a fan standpoint, from a team perspective, really struggled here a couple of years prior to Curt Cignetti coming to town. And what he did in the first year was miraculous.
Mm-hmm.
And what he did the second year was unbelievable, because how do you do that? 2 years in, you win a national championship and a fan base that's now embraced you like never before. I mean, we haven't seen sellouts like this. This season coming up is sold out already. It's unbelievable.
That's unbelievable, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. Can they repeat?
They can repeat. There's no doubt in my mind because we have the best coach in the country.
Did you know that, Cignetti, when you first saw him and saw what he was doing that first year? Like, there's something special about this guy.
I interviewed him twice, and that was before spring practice.
Yeah.
I took him to lunch after spring practice. I knew after watching him coach in spring ball that this team was going to win. And anybody that I talked to or asked me about it, I said, this team's going to win. I knew they were. I could tell just by the way he went about his business. And he knows how to run a program. He learned a lot from Saban in regard to how to run the program. I think the X and O part of it, he already knew. And I knew he had a chip on his shoulder when he got here because nobody had ever offered him a coordinator's job. So he was a lifer assistant coach. He bet on himself to go back to Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and take over that program. Won there. Then he goes to Elon. He wins there. And then he goes to JMU, and he was phenomenal there.
Yeah.
So every place he's been, just like he said, Google me, I win. So he's just a special man. There's no question about that. And we are so fortunate to have him.
And the university, man, making moves to build this program. I mean, NIL. I mean, it's just crazy how this whole game's changed.
Well, that's because what he did in NIL and with the transfer portal, that's the reason we won a national championship. I mean, you couldn't do this if you were recruiting just high school kids, because that takes time to develop all that talent. With a portal, it's opened up Indiana for opportunities to get players. And Cignetti is the best I've ever seen at picking out the character kids, the guys that know and fit what he's looking for. He's unbelievable at it. That's part of the reason that he looks at so much film, because he recognizes the things he wants and the things he doesn't want. And if he doesn't fit the criteria or his criteria, you're not coming.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so 53 years, fondest memory. When I say, because people ask me all the time after my years at doing 32 years at Channel 13, well, what do you remember? What's your fondest memory for Don Fischer?
Well, obviously, the 76 team winning a national championship in my third year here was phenomenal. And it always has been probably the most important thing in my life, in the sense of an opportunity to do something special. But this past year, in many respects, supersedes it, just because of how quickly it came and how good it's been in that 2-year period. This has been phenomenal. And why would you hang it up now? As Coach said, why would I leave Indiana? It's an emerging superpower.
And that's a great place for us to end. I really appreciate your time. We go way back, Donald.
Yeah, we, David.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you, too.
Don Fischer, the legend of the Indiana Hoosiers. Thanks for the time here on the IBJ Media Network and the Playmakers with the Pitch. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for watching and listening to Playmakers, brought to you by IBJ Media. I'm Dave Calabro. I hope you'll subscribe on YouTube or wherever else you get your podcast. Until next time, we'll see you later.